Carpathians are very ancient mountains, and those are mystical ones. All stories, interesting events of mankind, all mystical novels and beliefs, horror movies that are shot in the West, all of these are associated with Carpathians. Thus it has been happening for many centuries. Carpathians pass through 7 countries of Europe. But the geometric center of Carpathians, unless one imagines Carpathians as a geometric shape, then the center of symmetry will be located in Ukraine. Shypit waterfall is the most important waterfall able to talk. I began to study the literature and found that our Carpathian malfires could communicate both with thunderstorms, winds, and waters. They could obtain an information from the mountain rivers, since everything whispered to them. Shypit waterfall is a very interesting malfars tradition. Unless one remains near Shypit waterfall for a long time and listens attentively to the noises the water makes, one shall feel a whisper, then that can be heard by the human ear. Hence, this whisper begins to provide a person for some useful information about the world of spirits, certain prophecies, as well as explains how the universe works. Namely, this whisper begins to speak to us near the waterfall. By the way, Shypit waterfall connects several rivers, a few streams, and there are many of those, at least 7. Therefore, this number 7 provides this waterfall for a mystical power. One visits Shypit waterfall to hear the world of spirits and hears something from the spirit of Carpathians. People meditate near the waterfall and stay there around the clock in order to be in contact with those forces, just like it happens near Lake Synevir, just like in the mountains of Synevyr Pass, and just like in Synevyr Meadow. There is also a very interesting village of Kolochava. Recently it locates a museum with around 20 authentic log houses there that have been preserved since ancient times. Most of items located in these log houses are amulets, which have been used to protect people from illnesses, some strokes of fate, misfortunes, so that the child did not get ill, so that the birth went well, so that there was a fortune in the house, so that nothing burned down. It is amulet magic that is very widespread in Carpathians. Those are patterns on towels, also various multicolored ribbons, as well as patterns applied to jugs and buildings. All of those one may find when reaching for Kolochava. The word Kolochava itself is very interesting. The Chava is the name of the highest peak of Carpathians in this region, at a height of 1,750 meters above sea level. Generally, mountain peaks are often called the Chava. The Kolo is the horizon, the Kolodar, namely the lapse of time. That is a mountain peak located in the lapse of time. It is something quite mystical. The matter is that Kolochava looks like a bowl surrounded by mountains. One may learn that in France, namely in the city of Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, where the famous Santiago route begins, there is also a bowl surrounded by mountains. In the same way and location where Kolochava, energy is very interesting. There is a bowl where energy flows from all mountain peaks. You may find yourself in the museum of the old village complex. The houses one is going to study are those imported from other places and restored here. They have been restored as they were built. Therefore, one shall have the opportunity to learn from the life and the everyday of Kolochava residents who lived in the second half of the 19th century and the first half of the 20th century. As one may see, the house itself was built in 1856. It was also located on the outskirts of the village of Kolochava, 2005 and 2006. Such houses were taken to those places. Here they have been restored as they were built. In order to get inside the house, one should have been able to both open and close this house. A particular type of lock has been used to open and close the log house. It was opened by turning the key clockwise and closed by turning it anti-clockwise. As usual, this key was removed and generally hidden near this log house. But a place to reliably store it was the thatch, where the keys were hidden. Those were regular houses of the Austro-Hungarian regiment. One may try and find that the house was built not from a single type of wood, but from aspen, ash tree, maple, etc. The forest located on the outskirts of Kolochava belonged to the Austro-Hungarian magnates. Thus, to buy coniferous forest, one had to have quite large funds the people lacked. Hence, the houses were built generally from those types of woods that grew at the site. These were aspen, maple, and ash tree. They were sawn apart, and so a log house was built. Such houses generally consisted of two spaces. One space was for utility purposes. It was a space where household items were kept by the owners. Another space was for residential purposes. It was there where the family resided. The first space, namely for utility purposes, stored items of the following types: jars, barrels, bowls, as well as a cabbage chopping machine. There was also a winter men's clothing made of sheep's wool. Clothing was quite warm in winter and moisture-proof. Sure, the summer clothing was made of a different material, such as flax and hemp. Here, one may find the flax fibers and the device used to produce the thread, so it was a tow. Various types of jugs have been made using this type of spindle. These jugs were generally used to store liquid-type products. And there we have several barrels used to import salt water. People drove 35 kilometers away to find the wells with salt water. Barrels were used to collect this salt water, take it home, and use it to make food salty, both for themselves and for livestock, as well as for other needs. That is, this space was intended for. It was a residential space, where generally the whole family resided. This is a room where the whole family generally spent the autumn-winter period. Families in those days were large, so often they had to spend the night not only on benches or beds, but some children also spent the night on the floor. The floors were actually earthen, and often in order not to catch a cold, it was covered with such covers and bedspreads together with a feather bed. Unless the family had a baby, then there was some sort of a cradle. A red thread was often tied to the cradle to protect the child from evil eyes of neighbors. At all times, to build a house, one required to obtain certain building materials. A certain type of saw was used to cut them out. The basic saw for sawing looked like this, and generally required two people to saw and cut out the boards, whereas one sawed from above, the other one from below. Such type of power saws has been used in Kolochava for quite a long time, until about 1960. Kolochava was first completely electrified in the 60s. Hence they began to use the so-called sawmills. Here one may find the Kolochava citizens' shoes, which are called sandals. These are 20th century shoes. Until 20th century, such shoes were generally made of calf, sheep, pigskin leather, and wild animal skin. Shoes were made of a type of leather the owner managed to purchase. Such shoes were called sandals. They were intended for both summer and winter periods. This is a summer class of a single-class parochial school. Church deacons were the main teachers in those schools. These chairs are students' workplaces, as well as teacher's chair, teacher's desk, and the blackboard. Children have been generally studied at those classrooms in summer periods, when it was dry and warm outdoors. But if it rained, and especially in the autumn-winter period, then children have been studied in different classrooms. During the autumn-winter period, children usually studied in classrooms, but the classrooms were equipped in pleasant log houses located in free spaces. It was the so-called winter classroom of a single-class parochial school. Why was it called a single class? Since the entire study process lasted only 1 year. Meanwhile, children studied the alphabet, and it was in Latin at the time, since church deacons had a good command of Latin alphabet. They graduated from theological seminaries, where they were taught in Latin. They had a good command of Latin, so they also taught children. Besides alphabet, children were taught to read and to write. The words were actually Ukrainian using Latin letters. Then they studied counting, which meant studying mathematics, simple mathematical operations of addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. So that was the end of the children's education. But not all children of school age had the opportunity to obtain such a primitive education either. Since the school was generally located in the center of the village, and the children resided on the outskirts, they almost did not have any opportunity to visit the school. Beyond that, many families were poor and did not have any opportunity to put shoes and clothes on, feed their children, and send them to school. Molfars, able to heal, also lived in Kolochava. These were mostly female Molfars able to heal people. A few years ago, there were only several of them. Recently they practice in other places of Carpathians, but they come back and sometimes share advice with people in Kolochava. That is why Kolochava is like a cradle for women able to cure using traditional medicine. The word Kolochava is also called pounder or mortar, where medicinal plants are ground. Medicinal plants are prepared for use. Hence, the word Kolochava is associated with traditional medicine and medicinal herbs. By the way, there is a lot of those growing in the mountains. There are plenty of medicinal plants in the mountains, which only grow in this region, nowhere else. Ukraine was affected. We had Poles somewhere not far away. Ivano-Frankivsk was occupied by Poles. The Volyn region, namely part of our region, was occupied by Poles. There were the Magyars here. 5 years following the 40th, there were the Magyars, and the Poles were in the Frankivsk region. Synevir is a quite mystical lake. Once, all Carpathians were inhabited by Molfars. Thus, the sorcery was known by every resident of Carpathians. This is a traditional medicine, as well as an ancient mystical tradition. So they believe that every living being has both a spirit and a soul. Hence it is the spirit of Carpathians that appears over Lake Synevir. Unless one takes a look at Lake Synevyr from an airplane, it reminds the shape of a human eye. That it is called an eye of Carpathians. It is believed that the spirit of Carpathians, the spirits of ancestors, and the spirits of nature gaze, use this eye to gaze through the physical world, where we humans live. Therefore, people came to this lake and meditated on its shores to get some mystical connection with the world of higher spirits, to obtain certain knowledge and piece of advice, to realize how the universe works, what's the human from the inside, what are the secrets in the universe. Everything is revealed to people through meditation, when they find themselves on the shore of Lake Synevir. They also may find here an eye of Carpathians. A lot of rituals are associated with it. One should make certain mystical walking around the lake to communicate with spirits or ancestors. Legend says that if one makes a complete circle around the lake, it gives a person strength, energy, health and fortune. Thus, as one may see, a lot of guests come even from other countries worldwide to make a circle around Lake Synevir. One may find the roots. The name Synevir consists of, namely, Syn and Vir, stands for Viri in modern Ukraine. These are zenith, and point located above head at noon, meaning the sky. And Syn means water, namely connection of sky and water. The sky means Prava, the water means Nava. Nava and Prava are connected in this place. That is why it is so strong in energy. The spirit of Carpathians is not only a marvelous mountain nature, rich in spruce forests. It also means the original Carpathian culture, being an integral part of the Ukrainian people, incredible traditions and customs, mystical secrets hidden far away in the mountains, healers and molfars who possess knowledges and have supernatural skills, but also part of the spirit of Carpathians, being a beautiful place located near Synevyr meadow, a place where cute creatures found shelter, since these animals lived in terrible conditions in captivity before. The rehabilitation center added brown bears a new life. This place has become for Pintot a new home, where they have found friends and enjoy excellent living conditions.